I would like to turn now to some of the questions from the audience, which I think you will all be interested in. And Charlene and Emily, this is a question, and it says, if Black lives really matter, how receptive or open will Broadway be to new Black voices? And I would say Broadway and opera. And Charlene, you're talking about that for Greensboro. Black voices and allowing true changes to happen for writers, actors, and artists. I'm a writer and I want to be part of the change we all need to happen. Would you two like to address that a bit?
Do you want to?
You go first, Charlene.
Well, I mean, I think what Peter said about the pipeline is, how do you get into the pipeline? I'm not sure how that happens. We are looking for a writer if someone is interested, and maybe that's a way to get in the pipeline. We're looking for someone to write, give us some ideas about how to write our opera about the Greensboro Four, you know? So I don't know if that's a way to start. I don't know. You have to start small and then you get,
So I would say also that the smaller regional companies might be a place to begin.
Yeah.
Emily, do you have further
Yeah,
thoughts?
I would say that it's already starting. It started and it is continuing, and it will only get stronger. Right now, see, I don't think it's a pipeline issue. I think the extraordinary artists are out there, the directors, the potential producers, certainly the writers and the performers. And how do you harness all that incredible creative energy? And what's happened is, if you look at the last few Pulitzer Prizes, they are by Black playwrights. They're for Black playwrights. If you look at the biggest sensation of the Broadway season last year, Jerome Harris's Slave Play, whether you liked it or not, he has become a superstar. It is happening, and now there is no way, for example, that you can put on a production without the question, how diverse is your cast? How diverse is your design team? And the producers, and I've now made it part of my contracts that the producers have to have a producer of color on my shows. And if they, and that they must bring in interns and or assistants or apprentices into their offices. And you know what? People, it turns out, want to do it. They didn't know how to do it. They didn't know what to do. That now they're doing it. The major not-for-profits in New York have now brought on associate artistic directors of color across the board. And we're seeing that around the country in the regionals. In terms of what's going on for writers, I think, Charlene, you're absolutely right to start a commissioning program. And if what you're writing about, I mean, I'm still saying I'm looking for the Tulsa massacre from the Tulsa Opera and the Tulsa Theater Company. I'm looking for the stories from Greensboro. I'm looking for the theaters around the country to make these commissions extremely exciting, and with enough money that people can, in fact, be able to live and work. And I think we're going to see a flowering of that. I mean, it was starting before, but it's really starting to take off. And I know, because I was sort of a lone voice howling in the wilderness for so long. And now I feel, I've got all these allies who want to be doing this. And so I get a lot of people asking me how we did it.
That's great. And Rhiannon Giddens is doing something next year.
Awesome.
Isn't she's awesome? About the Wilmington riots and the Wilmington, North Carolina, which most people have not heard about.
Yeah. And, there's, and my play Greensboro Requiem was talking about white supremacy,
Yeah, which I did not know before. And I've read that now. That's really something. Yeah.
So a couple of more general questions. And Jerome, I think this one's for you. Will any of the states step up to support public performances outdoors in the summer, such as the ones you're talking about? Do you know about other places where this is going to happen?
I guess that the short answer is I don't know. It seems that states are very varied in their responses. I think that there's going to be much more going on the local level. I will I'll mention that, being a New Yorker, I've been extremely frustrated at the conflicting information, conflicting messaging coming from New York State and New York City about even whether venues can essentially do anything and monetize it. As an example, Governor Cuomo's office months ago put out a announcement that, okay, the state had entered stage 4, of dealing with the virus, and outdoor arts and culture performances were allowed to happen as long as they complied with the health guidelines. Then the state liquor authority came out with an edict saying that, well, only incidental music is allowed. It cannot be advertised and it cannot be ticketed. So of course, venues, if they're not able to sell tickets and let people know that music is going to be happening, how can the venues or the performers, earn anything? So there was a court case. I think it was put on hold, the state liquor authority's edict, and the state liquor authority is appealing, and no one knows where this is going to go. This is one example of something that really doesn't make any sense. Something that did make sense elsewhere, the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma, their arts and culture and tourism, entity, put together a program to certify venues that applied to this program, and they steered CARE Act's money to those venues if the venues committed to paying half of the performers' fees. And these were for largely outdoor performances, and some indoor ones, as long as they complied with Tulsa's health protocols.
So it seems to me that what you're saying is that as we move forward with this, we're hoping that many different places will find ways to get music back outside this summer. Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at Barrington Stage, they actually were able to do it last summer. And if anyone's interested, they worked with some, with epidemiologists and the unions and everything else, and they were successful in how to put work outside.
Peter, you had something to
Yeah,
say?
just quickly, Santa Fe Opera is planning to perform next summer, this summer. Yeah, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
I know Glimmerglass has not canceled. I think they're planning to do things and probably using outdoor venues as well, which they are trying to make happen.
Okay, that's hopeful.
Mhm.
I have two more questions, and very briefly, this is from someone who's younger and who is asking for guidance, and I think it's a great question. Do you have suggestions for young artists just starting out during these challenging times? I.e., if you do nothing else, you should be sure to. Do you have any thoughts for this artist who's asking questions?
What is their field?
It doesn't say.
Well, for my field, I would say that the basic thing remains the same. Learn how to sing.
Yeah.
Because no matter what, you still have to figure out how to do your art and how to do your craft.
Learn your languages.
Learn your languages, learn all that stuff.
Yeah.
And probably these days, get comfortable with recording technology,
Yes.
because there's a lot that's going on in that realm, until, and it will continue to some degree, you know, back when in-person performing returns.
Right.
And I would dovetail onto Jerome with the theater that if you're a playwright, actor, or director, there's a lot of phenomenal work going on with people just getting together as friends and colleagues. They're not getting paid, unfortunately, although some have been able to get some grants. Make the work, make the connections, because it's a collaborative art form, and you find your soulmates, and nothing can stop you from creating if you put your mind to it.
Great. And the final question, which I think is an interesting one, is what have we learned from past disasters that forced the stage to go dark and then recover? I don't know that we've ever had a disaster such as this, but
Yeah, I definitely didn't live through the 1918 flu epidemic.
Right. But when you think about 9/11, I was running a theater, and a few people ended up showing up for our production of Romeo and Juliet, which was about the mothers taking hands over the dead bodies of their children, actually. And people saw that play in an entirely new light. But it took us 4 years to get the audience back. And if I were to do it again, what I realized was it took me and my staff going out, and it was like grassroots organizing. It's meeting with your community and telling them that they will be safe and how it will help them recover, and not be afraid to go out to break their isolation. People were not wanting to leave their houses and go into places where there were a lot of people because they were afraid a bomb would go off. And that's the closest I've come. And it took time, but it took a lot of personal one-on-one and small group connections. We may have to do that again.
I will just chime in quickly with, I was directing Little Women at the Cabrillo Festival, and during our performance, somebody collapsed, and then somebody else collapsed. And then everyone thought it was a gas attack. It was the summer of 2012. And everybody thought that there was some sort of gas attack. Well, no, it was just extremely old audience members, both of whom were fine. And Marion Alsop, God bless her, was looking at the singers on stage who were freaking out. And she was like, look at me, look at me. And they did. And the performance continued. And the EMT people came in and took folks out. But everyone was convinced that it was a gas leak or, you know, a gas bomb or something. Horrifying.
I have another thing just to add to that, which is a young director named Sammy Canold, Cannold. She was my associate, actually, on my last show in New York. She's phenomenal, and she was working in Seoul, Korea, and she's written an article why their theaters are open and what protocols they put into place. And now some theater owners are looking at that in New York, her article, and also in London. But I think if anyone can find that, it was published. And there are ways to do it right and safely.
I know a couple of people who were in the company of Phantom in Seoul, and it's pretty amazing what they're doing. And you know, if anybody gets sick, they shut down for 2 weeks. But they have these people there who have been there for months, potting, and living in a hotel and doing their jobs.
Yeah.
You know, art will find a way.
Mm-hmm.